Lord forgive me for this trap shit. Sergeant Smack making backflip. Telly Hank did with the action. With the Vato speaking Spanish. Frank Matthews, how I vanish. Poof. Came back like I'm King Tut. Gold BBS is on a beamer. When Fat Cat was 10 queens up. Ball off the profit, not the re-up. Fly like Puerto Rican Jesus. Uptown like I'm Baby Maine. Just caught a touchdown from the Bay.
At 6 also, local rap music producer Carlton Hart beat a murder rap last year and filed a civil lawsuit claiming false arrest against the city. That lawsuit is still pending, but Carlton Hart is now back in jail facing another separate murder charge.
For the first time in nearly 2 years, an Indianapolis music producer is waking up a free man. Charges in a controversial murder case have been dropped. That is Carlton Hart and his family celebrating when he was released from jail yesterday after passing another polygraph test. Hart was awaiting trial for the 2008 murder of Richard Miller. The Miller case was profiled on The Shift, a Discovery Channel show that follows Metro Police homicide detectives. Well, now the prosecutor has dropped the case against Hart. Earlier this morning, I got to talk to Carlton and his sister about the revelations in this case.
I'm 100% innocent. I'm a humanitarian. I'm here to help save lives, not take lives. I would never harm anyone. I have daughters that, look up to me, and I'm here for my community to set a standard to show people, the right way to live and be in my neighborhood, in all neighborhoods, to be positive.
Now, Hart believes that he was used as a scapegoat and claims police had enough evidence that he was innocent, but used him to further their career. Hart says after all of this, he has not lost faith in the justice system, but believes there needs to be changes made. He says he will file a lawsuit. Scotty said he took 7 lie detector tests to finally be able to get out of jail.
Yeah, to pass them all, right?
That's what he says, yeah.
All right, Mayor Rick Ballard is changing his...
They don't release the beast. You hear me? Come on, man. It's on and popping. They don't release the beast, you hear me? I'm free, I'm looking crazy. I braided my own hair. It's going down, you hear me? I got my main partners with me right here. I got Trees in St. James. Matt, it's over, you hear me? 100 ENT, we about to go to the top. We can't be stopped. It's a wrap. You hear me? You hear me? I got a bullshit. Oh, shit!
Hart spent over 700 days in jail for a 2008 murder he said he didn't commit. But now he's under arrest for another murder that occurred at his music studios.
I thought it was totally ridiculous, being the fact that it wasn't me, and it was pretty obvious that it wasn't me.
That was 44-year-old Carlton Hart telling me last year that he was not guilty of murdering Richard Miller back in 2008. 4 witnesses identified him from the surveillance camera image. The case was featured on a Discovery Channel show called The Shift. Hart had an alibi witness, and after he and the alibi witness passed a polygraph test, he was released. But maybe not this time. He and 20-year-old Dante Robinson are charged with murder, kidnapping, conspiracy to commit kidnapping, and conspiracy to commit criminal confinement. They are in custody. 3 others remain at large.
The murder occurred in his studio, and prior to the murder, he and a couple of the other individuals involved were at the Lowe's purchasing zip ties, duct tape, and a 2x4, all of which were used during the commission of the crimes.
Thomas Keys was murdered. Marvin Finney II was shot multiple times and managed to flee the studio and sought help in the CVS drugstore parking lot just down the street. The shooting was apparently retaliation for a prior shooting in which one of Hart's relatives was killed. There is surveillance video of Hart purchasing duct tape and zip ties inside the Lowe's at 62nd and Keystone. It is unclear if his new arrest will affect his civil lawsuit. When we asked City Corporation Counsel Samantha Karn about this latest arrest, she said, "No comment. It speaks for itself." Now, we asked Hart if he would like to do an on-camera interview with us today, and he declined. We asked his civil attorneys for comment, and they did not return our phone calls. Derek Thomas, RTV6.
Yo, we back. It's your boy Popalot. Mobb. We on our way to Indiana with it. The Nap Town. Y'all niggas sleep if y'all wanna. Indianapolis, what up though? Y'all get in the comment box, flood that bitch. Y'all know how we rocking. Now today, I'm gonna be detailing the story of the luckiest unlucky man in the world. And the guy that I'm talking about is gonna be a guy by the name of Carlton Hart. Some of the guys in Indianapolis might know him by the name of Sir Hart. Now a little bit about Carlton Hart. Looks like he was an upcoming producer in the city of Indianapolis. Actually, quite a few videos of people gathering up and recording at his studio. So by the looks of it, it looks like he has some motion in the city as far as this music thing is going. But his life would change drastically in 2008, leading me to wonder and to ask y'all, do y'all think that situation had any ramifications on the situation that he would find himself in 5 years after that drastic change? So now everything would change drastically on November 3rd of 2008 when, according to authorities, Carlton Hart would be involved in a deadly home invasion. Now, it would be 5 people in the home: Richard Miller, Dwayne Miller, Tamala Daniels, Ricky Blulet, and Courtney Grasscock. Now, Richard and Dwayne Miller were brothers. Blulet was their stepbrother. Tamala was a friend of Dwayne Miller and just happened to be at the residence. And Courtney Grasscock was Ricky Blulet's girlfriend at the time. Now, according to authorities, they would say that 3 men would be involved in that home invasion. When the incident initially occurred, they would say Grasscock and Blulet were sitting in a parked car in the driveway when 3 armed men would approach the house. One of the men would take Grasscock to the side of the house and hold her captive, while the other 2 men would enter the residence with Blulet at gunpoint. Once inside of the residence, the 2 men would encounter the brothers. Now, one of the gunmen that entered the residence would immediately shoot and kill Richard, while the other would proceed to go to a back bedroom where he would find Dwayne along with Tamala Daniels, and Dwayne will be shot and wounded. Now, the 2 females and the Miller's stepbrother was left unharmed. I'm sure that led police to believe that Richard Miller and Dwayne Miller were the targets of this home invasion. Nonetheless, authorities would round up suspects, and all 4 surviving victims would go on to identify Carlton Hart as one of the assailants that entered that residence, and he would essentially be charged with the murder of Richard Miller, and he would even be profiled on a detective sort of like show, something like First 48, but I'm sure this is specifically for Indiana, and it was titled The Shift, where they would track his arrest, and that would be very, very important going down the line. Now, after being arrested and identified for that murder, he would spend 600 days in jail fighting that life sentence before he would essentially get a Hail Mary from God when, in October of 2010, prosecutors would drop the charges, essentially citing unreliable witnesses. So they pretty much identified him, and then 2 years later, those charges are dropped. A lot of times it don't get that far, it don't get to 2 years. Once you're identified, some of those people will sign that statement, some of those people are going to take that stand, and you're going to jail. That's one way or the other way. So Carlton Hart essentially got a break, whether he did the crime or not. And it would be at that time when most people will find a refound joy for living, for family, for just being free. And like I said, this is whether he did it or not. But that was the lucky part. Let's get into the unlucky part. Fast forward 2 years later to November 15th, 2002, and a murder would occur at a studio that Carlton Hart owned near East 46th Street and North Keystone Avenue. Shout out to the area. Anybody know about the area, been around? Shit, y'all been into the studio. Y'all better get in the comment box. But on that day, a DJ by the name of Thomas Keys, along with another gentleman by the name of Marvin Finney II, would be shot, ultimately leading to the death of Thomas Keys. Now, while investigating the murder, an Indianapolis Police Department detective by the name of Brian Schumer would arrive at the studio, and later on, Hart would arrive stating that he was the owner of said studio. The detective would immediately order him downtown for an interview, and on his first statement on the day of the murder, Hart would tell the police detective that he had received a phone call to come to his studio because police officers had it surrounded. Hart also would tell the detective that he did not know Keys or Finney and that he was not expecting anyone to be at his studio on that day. Now, Hart would be called in about 2 weeks after that first statement for a second statement, and he would essentially tell the police that he had been receiving death threats and someone had been calling his phone repeatedly but not say anything. And he would also tell the detectives that he heard a rumor that Thomas Keys' murder was a retaliation for the murder of a local rapper by the name of Bango that happened recently. Now, what the detectives didn't know at that time but would eventually find out was the local rapper Bango that would be killed would be the cousin of Carlton Hart. Now, smelling blood from that second interview, it wouldn't be 3 days later on November 29th when detectives would call him in for a third statement, when Hart would mention talking to a guy by the name of James McDuffie on the day of the murder. Hart would go on to tell a detective that James McDuffie was already in the studio on the day of the murder, and that he and a guy by the name of Darren Jackson would arrive to the studio once he received a phone call that the studio was surrounded by James McDuffie. Now, I told y'all this was the unlucky part, right? Now, through the course of their investigation, detectives would determine that the two men were lured to said studio under the pretense that they were going to get free studio time. When arrived at that studio, they were ambushed by 5 separate men. While being held captive, the men would hold them at gunpoint, asking them questions in the form of, "Which one of y'all killed Bango?" When both men denied any knowledge of the local rapper's murder, the 5 assailants would proceed to go through the men's phone. While going through the men's phone, at this time while going through the van, that one of the men saw a text message from Finney's mother, which of whom he had borrowed her van to drive to said studio session. And it was in that text where his mother essentially said, "If you don't bring the van back, I'm going to call the police." And it would be then where they would proceed to zip tie and duct tape the men up, leading to the actual shooting and the murder. Now, I know all of you guys are asking yourself, well, how did Carlton Hart get himself dragged into this? Had he not been one of the 5 assailants, nobody even identified him for this second murder like the first one. He was spotted on security footage at Lowe's purchasing zip ties, purchasing duct tape, along with other incriminating evidence. So you might get off by the skin of your teeth, but you also might get caught by the flesh of your wrist. Y'all be careful. Y'all make sure y'all follow me on Instagram, on Twitter. It's your boy POP_A_LOT. Y'all hit the subscribe button right under this video so y'all know when this real trill spill shit is dropping. And y'all know I'm going to be back with some more ASAP. It's your boy Popalot. Mobb, Mobb, Mobb.